Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. Apologies, we're 60 seconds late. My fault. I'm Paul John Dykes. This is John Paul Mason. For the next 1 hour, we're going to be talking about Celtic. And at this moment in time, JP, there's always a lot to talk about, but at this moment in time, there is a hell of a lot to discuss in the world of Celtic. And obviously, the action's coming back this weekend. Thank goodness for that. We can concentrate a wee bit on the football.
Yeah, I know you've been hinting at doing like longer shows, and they certainly could be a lot longer than an hour every day, and certainly to reflect what's happened in Celtic world in the last couple of weeks. I mean, we've not spoken here since before the meeting that you attended. I was keen to hear. I've listened to what you've said about it, obviously on the shows over the last 2 weeks since it happened, and with intrigue, I might add, I still can't believe that you were actually there and witnessed. Said, I don't know, just it was just such a weird. Reflecting back, I know it's been talked to death, but it's just such a strange thing to process, really, like, and what they said and what they didn't say, and it just seems to have stoked the flames further. For me, it has anyway. I mean, I'm all in on whatever steps are decided next from the Celtic Fans Collective. I know there was a meeting last night, was it?
There was a get together on Tuesday, but it was really to establish an agenda for tonight. There's a meeting in Gracie's tonight, and all the signatories from the open letter have been invited along, and it's about talking about next stages. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And remaining active, really. So that's going to happen tonight at 7:00 for anyone. In fact, everyone who's on that letter will have been contacted via email or WhatsApp. But we spoke on Tuesday just to really talk about an agenda for this evening. I'll be there tonight, JP, as will many others. And anything at all that you want to talk about regarding that meeting, the aftermath, clarification, the shrug. Neil Lennon's comments this morning, obviously we're running with a tagline today, why the same tired voices will always stand up for Desmond and Lawwell. I think that's important to point this out. It's because, and I got a sense it last week, JP, at the meeting, it's because they all actually think they're the best in the business at what they do. And there's a clique mentality. Now, I've got my view on that. And a big part of that we spoke about yesterday was the mentality of the board and the fans. For a long time, I think, was the same. And the example I gave, JP, was chasing Rangers. After the takeover, let's say. I actually went further back. I say from 1989 to 1998, we were in pursuit of Rangers. Now, we all know that they were spending money they didn't have, it caught up with them, etc. But we were in pursuit of Rangers at that point. Just to be relevant initially, but then to try and stop the 10 eventually. And we did that. But we didn't catch them. We just beat them that season. And I think we only really matched them when Martin O'Neill came in. But in terms of the ambition, what I was talking about yesterday, if you didn't tune in, if you're just listening in, we did not have European endeavours or ambitions, rather, until Martin O'Neill's arrival at the football club during that period. So throughout the 1980s, there were some moments prior to me going to the games where we looked like a European outfit. 1980, Real Madrid, quarterfinals of the European Cup. Rapid Vienna, who went on to the final of the Cup Winners' Cup under, we obviously had the 3 games against them under Davy Hay. These are kind of 2 moments in the 80s where I think Celtic fans thought we had a chance in Europe. Beyond that, it was 1 or 2 rounds. So I think it was aligned. I think the ambitions of the fans and the board were aligned at that point, JP, going into, the stopping the 10. It was all about catching. Then it was taking over Rangers, and that only happened after Martin O'Neill came to the fore. The European aspirations under O'Neill and Gordon Strachan. So all of a sudden, Europe's, on the horizon again. For the first time in a generation, JP, Europe is on the horizon. The famous stat was that we didn't play beyond Christmas in Europe between 1980 and Martin O'Neill coming to the club. Ridiculous for a club of
basically my entire life.
Yeah, 20 years. Point. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And I think what's happened is, and I explained all this yesterday, I don't want to go over old ground, but just to kind of set the context, what then happened was Celtic fans got a taste of it. We wanted European football. We didn't just catch and then match Rangers. We overtook them and then they died. And then basically what happened is I think the focus on that European endeavour, JP, was marred or it was blurred because we started chasing 9 in a row. We started chasing 9 and that was the holy grail. Well, we got that. And we got all the trebles, quadruple trebles. We completed Scottish football. And then I think what the boards, because largely it's the same faces, right? The board still have that same mentality of, right, we'll just do 9 again. Let's go for the 10. And the fans are thinking, actually, no, that's not enough. We've done all that. That's in the past. Rangers, the rivalry, Old Firm, that's in the past. We need to focus on something bigger. And that disconnect, JP, we spoke about it yesterday. When did it start? I think it was a gradual thing, but it certainly exists. And never more have I felt it than last Monday. The deep, deep disconnect between the people at the football club and the fans. And I would never say the fans and the club, because the club is Celtic. That's different. I will always have that connection to Celtic. But the people who are within the boardroom, there is a deep disconnect between their vision and their ambition and fans. And that's why there's a collective. That's why there's a movement. And that's why there's a meeting tonight. But I was trying to put my finger on it. I'm not sure when it happened. When when we were no longer aligned. Did it happen during the COVID season? Perhaps. When we lost the 10? I don't know. But it certainly exists now. And it's not going to go away. I don't think we're all just going to revert to type, JP, and say, oh, it's just great beating Rangers. Oh, quadruple. This is brilliant. When you're looking at the stadium and the academy not producing players and the recruitment being shambolic at times, and the communication being non-existent and the contempt just growing and growing. And I called it a clique today because obviously some of the same voices always come out in support of the people at the football club. Get the medals on the table, JP. Look at the money in the bank. You should be lucky. Stop being so entitled.
Well, just thinking back to what you're saying about from 1980 to Martin O'Neill, that time period, it was a case that we were trying to save face, stop embarrassment, stop the bleeding. And it was every season. I mean, I vividly remember going into every season with almost no optimism of potentially winning the league. Like it was a case of maybe we could win a trophy this season. Like getting to the League Cup final in 1994 under Tommy Burns was like, to me at that point, was the equivalent of the UEFA Cup final. That was how big it was because I hadn't ever been to a final before at that point. It was like, that's so crazy to think, and all the ones that we've had since. So there was an element of, we were just trying to save face and stop being embarrassed by them. And we've got to the point now where they are like a dot in our rear view mirror. They're so far back that, but then it also feels like we've stalled the car. They're not catching up with us, but we've stalled the car, and we're not continuing to motor into the world where we all want to be, which is competing at a higher level. And it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we could do that. And the fact that they championed, or we've competed in European football, or we've competed in European football for 19 out of the 20 seasons or something, whatever they wheeled out as a kind of yardstick. That's not anything to get excited about. But that's a given. I mean, what if a lot of them were Conference League? Is that still something to be punching the air about?
I'm sure it would end up on the whiteboard. But the thing is, JP, when they said it, there was a palpable air of disbelief in the room. Not on that side of the table with the Celtic staff, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the fans in the room. No one could believe what he said. It was asked to be clarified, and he clarified it. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking, we're on a different page here. You're talking about rear view mirrors. You will always see that wee dot if you drive in a straight line. It's time for us to go like that. We need to take another track. This is the thing. And, with regards to that rivalry, Kevin Graham and I have had this discussion since we started 8 years ago, JP, and the fact that there's this thirst from Celtic and people at Celtic to always have that rivalry. Why? It's parochial. Why do you buy a season ticket? Is it just to watch 2 games against Rangers? Of course it's not. Absolutely not. There was probably a time where that was marketed, and obviously you could buy tickets where the Rangers games weren't on the season ticket. That probably was marketed. I don't think that's what we want now as a fan base. I just think we want to see the club grow. Yesterday, John Hughes, myself, and Patrick were talking about that. And we were talking about, you know what, forget 10 in a row. The 10 in a row should be the 10 Champions League games. That should be your target season on season. And if you've got those, JP, everything else will take care of itself on the park domestically. You'll be strong enough domestically if you are buying players to ensure that you're prepared for the Champions League. And again, this is another thing I think is a stick that we're constantly beating with. We're not looking for 5 players at 10 million every summer. No one I've ever spoken to who supports Celtic thinks that's realistic and has that as an expectation, JP. We know where we are in terms of the finances.
Yeah, we do. And speaking of finances, you can visibly see a scramble to try and garner interest in the Sturm Graz game next week because, well, I'll tell you one thing that they've done. I don't know if this has been mentioned, and it's not exactly revelationary, but they created a Facebook event for the game. Now, Celtic haven't created a Facebook event, maybe aside from Legends matches, but they've not created a Facebook event for a game for a long, long time. So they've been they're obviously going, right, what are all the tools that we can use to try and, you know, even sell an extra few hundred or few thousand tickets via spreading the word like that. Because I know a lot of people don't use Facebook, but I kind of use it as a thing to keep my calendar. So like if I click that I'm attending an event, and I can go to my events and I know, well, I've got that coming up. Like last week I went to see Trigger Happy TV live last week, and I actually found out about that through Facebook. So there you go. It does work to a certain extent.
Where was Dom Jolly having a bite to eat? Did it pop up on his Instagram or something?
It was Saturday.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because that's where I used to meet when I was editing the Quality Street Gang. I would go to Saturdays in Glasgow, and it popped up, and I thought, all right. So you went to see that last week, did you?
It was brilliant. It was unbelievable. It was last Thursday. But yeah, they've used a Facebook event. The people would be like, what difference does that make? It's like, well, there's not been one made for it. You look at Celtic's Facebook and look at the events. There's no events for home league games. There's no events for Scottish Cup games. There's no events for previous European games, but there is for next week, which tells you that there is alarm bells ringing there.
They're using every avenue which they should have been using on a day-to-day basis already, JP, but it does show a real lack of creativity, doesn't it? I mean, we were talking about the Feyenoord game and how we didn't even televise it, and then I watched it on Feyenoord TV, and the coverage was excellent. My Dutch it's a bit rusty, but the coverage was excellent, JP. It was outstanding. Did you get a chance to see any of it?
I didn't know. What was Sunday? Was it Sunday? It was on.
Aye, and so here we go, right? So Bruni obviously gets sent off. That was one of the big talking points. But there's a referee's cam. So the ref's got a cam on him, so you can see Bruni approaching him and all that. And it was brilliant. It was good to watch. It was a bit different, a bit unique. You know, they were doing the interviews in dugouts. I said this before. Van Hooijdonk comes off as a sub, and they're instantly interviewing him about, you know, his Celtic connections and all the rest of it. What did we do? Nothing. We didn't do anything. A couple of pictures on the socials. That was it. Didn't even show the game. So it's a lack of creativity and a wee bit of foresight to say, how do we sell tickets and how do we do it differently? If we go back to the Man United game, the Legends game, you could argue the toss because obviously there's been some big names being associated with both clubs, but two of the biggest names that have been associated with Man United and Celtic are Henrik Larsson and Roy Keane. Now, we're obviously doing a bit of business with Henrik now with ranges and all the rest of it. Don't know how long that's going to last, but there seems to be an annual range of Henrik Larsson merchandise and all that kind of stuff, right? Just waiting for the mass to come back. And why didn't we utilise these big, high-profile people in the lead up to that game? Because that was a damp squib. Again, not shown live. We could have had... we all know people, right, that a knock on the door would change their life. We done a wee bit of this, JP, when we started doing this as Acsom, and it was when a legend calls. So we would just randomly get an ex-Celtic player to phone somebody who's a Celtic fan, and it'd be like, oh, how's it going? Aye, Simon Donnelly, how's it going? Aye, it's Jackie McNamara. That kind of thing. It's like, really? Or is this somebody doing an impression? And I actually lifted the spirits. We would do it when somebody maybe wasn't well and all this kind of stuff. You know the guys and girls in the fan base that love Celtic and maybe are going through a hard time. Imagine a knock at the door. There's Roy Keane or Henrik Larsson, and then filming it, and without even asking people to buy a ticket, you're buying into that event because of the feel-good factor of something as simple as that. We didn't do any of that. It's all about, just ticking boxes. And the clique that I'm talking about, it's comments that Neil Lennon has made in relation to Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell. So whilst I understand that he will have a different relationship, JP, than you or I with these two individuals, to come out, and speaking the Sun, which, we've already discussed this with regards to the leak, is already a big, massive no-no. But to say it in such a way where it's almost like, I'm going to put these guys on a pedestal. It's almost to say to us, how dare you question the abilities and the dedication and the love for the club that these two men have got. It's almost like you should be lucky, back down, just sit in your seat and cheer. And that, for me, is the worst attitude. That's the last thing we need to hear right now, JP, from someone who, when looking for work, went on record as saying that he's got a great relationship with Israel and he'd go over there and work in Israeli football. Coming out during and in the the aftermath of the COVID season and saying that there was a toxicity amongst our fan base. You're talking to Celtic supporters who live and breathe Celtic 24 hours a day, and you're saying that we're toxic. There's a toxic element amongst the fan base. It's like, I think I'm sick of being told how to support Celtic by people who have never, ever once paid at the gate to go and watch the football club.
I think the toxicity thing was probably more to do with cabin fever and going out your mind during that time. We weren't even at the games. So was he measuring the toxicity online? Was that? There's still toxicity online now. It's not just gone away, but there was no fans at the game, so I don't really know how you could say that it was as toxic in the excuse me, in the grand scheme of things. The night of the Ross County game, the infamous night where supposedly thousands of Celtic fans turned up outside Celtic Park, when in reality, genuinely, it was around about 200, maybe 150 to 200 fans. It got made to look so much worse, but it wasn't really that many people. So that was a small faction of Celtic fans that turned up that night, and didn't do ourselves any favours with the way that things kind of panned out. It wasn't as bad as it's been made out. Like, time, as you get further and further away, that night gets worse and worse and worse in terms of people being attacked and this, that, and the next thing, and obviously the fences being thrown and everything else. But it wasn't really that bad. Was the conduct of the fans that night any worse than the conduct of the club in Dubai? Well, yeah, exactly. It was so reckless going to Dubai at that time. Almost unthinkable that it would be decided that was a good look. Whether it was safe or not in terms of the whole distancing and all the rest of it, there was that to take into consideration. But there was also the fact that everybody else, you, me, and everybody else, were all stuck here and didn't have the luxury of being able to fly to Dubai. Some of us weren't even able to see our parents or our family at that time because they were out with jurisdictions and whatnot. So no, that was terrible. But I think I was going to say something. I've gone completely off piste as we do. I jumped in when you were talking about the Harris fencing and all that kind of stuff up at the park, and how time has embellished the size of the crowd, the nature of the crowd. Yeah, it wasn't great, but a big part of that, like you say, was cabin fever as much as anything, JP. But as I said, I opened up by saying I'm sick of people who don't go to watch Celtic telling us how to support Celtic, who don't invest anything in Celtic. Anything. They don't invest any emotion in Celtic. Listen, Neil Lennon was a hero of mine when he was a player. Should he have been the manager of Celtic on both occasions? I think there's a discussion there. Did he ever beat a strong Rangers side? I think there's a discussion there as well. Because the first time he won the league, I'm talking about as a manager here, was the season that Rangers were deducted 12 points. They were beginning to go down the funnel at that point. That was the first time Neil Lennon won the league as a manager. And every other time after that, he won the league as a manager. And if you want to be disparaging, let's look at facts. Rangers weren't in the league.
So we lost the league to a very, very weak Rangers side under Neil Lennon in his first full season in charge of the football club.
And if you, this is just something I was thinking about, out with the comments of sticking up for Dermot Desmond or Peter Lawwell or whatever, but I was thinking about our lack of creativity in front of goal, or our lack of goals this season, and wondering when was the last time, because Alan Morrison pointed out, I think when he was on with you last Friday, about we're not scoring goals. That's our main problem, is we're not scoring goals. And I was like, when was the last time that we were so profligate in front of goal? And it was season 2013, 2014. And a cursory glance at what we did in terms of the transfer window that season. What does it say here? They were faced with the burden of replacing three main pieces of their squad in Gary Hooper and Kelvin Wilson were sold to Norwich City and Nottingham Forest respectively. So that's you took Gary Hooper's goals out of that team, which were significant, I would have said. I can't remember exactly how many goals he scored the previous season, but enough. Whilst the highly rated Victor Wanyama was sold to Southampton for a Scottish record fee of £12.5 million. So big sale. Neil Lennon rebuilt his squad by signing Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, no arguments over Virgil van Dijk, but he was a defender.
Not a bad signing.
No, not a bad signing at all. And you could never sort of go against that. It's obviously one of the most successful signings that we've made in our recent history. And he'll go on to be considered one of the greatest defenders in modern football.
Yeah.
But when you go to the next person, Virgil van Dijk and Amido Baldi in the summer, and Timo Pukki from Schalke on transfer deadline day. So, I mean, I know that Timo Pukki went on to have a successful career elsewhere, but he didn't have a successful career for us. So no. it didn't do anything for us, him becoming successful, a year or two down the line, down south. His transfer to Celtic wasn't successful. Now, I know it's not an exact science and everything else, but it shows that, I mean, how much did we pay for Timo Pukki? We're selling Victor Wanyama for £12.5 million. We're selling Amido Baldi and Timo Pukki. And then we go on to not score in 5 games up till this point. One of them included the home loss to Greenock Morton in the Cup, which I'm reminded about every year, every September.
By your mate.
And also Ali McCoist's birthday. And then we drew 0-0 with Elfsborg in one of the Champions League qualifiers. We also drew 0-0 with somebody else as well. 0-0 with Elfsborg, got beat off Shakhtar Karagandhi 2-0 away, won the home leg 3-0. We got beat off AC Milan 2-0 away. I was actually at that game in San Siro. I remember, I think Stokes hit the crossbar just before they scored the second goal. And I remember we were above them in the away end and they unfurled the Rino Gattuso banner. And I was just like, I think I'm done with Milan now. If they're championing him and try to get it up us. And then the following game, admittedly, was against Barcelona and we lost 1-0 at home to Barcelona. So two of those 5 games that we drew a blank in, i.e. didn't score, were against Barcelona and AC Milan. So some allowance has to be given. But the fact is that we were struggling to score, and it's been 11 years since we've had a run of games like that where we've struggled to score. So, the Neil Lennon thing, the fact that he chose that paper as well is disappointing. The fact that he's telling us when you've sat in a meeting and listened to the people that are in charge. I mean, he's basically saying they're good guys, which is exactly what Brendan Rodgers said in his interview. It's like, oh, they're good guys, They're there at Christmas Day. They're looking after, underprivileged children, things like that. Okay, that's really great. But to sit there and say, he's the money guy, I'm the contracts guy, like
suck it up. Yeah.
That is 100% not what we wanted to hear. And like I said, my hope is that the Celtic fans collective stays united and doesn't fragment, becomes empowered by the situation and aren't put off from this being something that is in for the long haul, and just sort of bat away these comments from people trying to stick up for the people in charge. Just kind of have like a kind of tunnel vision with regards to it, and just be like, right, okay, so and so said that, bat it out of the way. So and so said that, bat it out of the way. Just keep focused on what we need to do here, because there's 100% no doubt in my mind that there is better people that could be in charge of what is guiding our club.
Without a doubt, JP, and we're talking about ambition and vision, and what we're trying to do on a Celtic State of Mind is to get as many views and opinions from a wide range of Celtic fans, because, I mean, I've gone on about the figures. It's not about sticking a feather in my own cap and all that kind of stuff, but there's a huge amount of Celtic supporters listen to and watch Acsom, right? And we engage with people on the socials, we engage with people in person at live events, and we get a good sense of a wide range of views. We do get a good sense of that. And when we start talking about ambition, we started off with the stadium. We've done a show on the state of Paradise, and we're going to follow that up with a CGI video of what Paradise could look like. Why? People say, why would you do that? Because I think it's engaging. It's far more engaging than listening to two Celtic fans talking for an hour, actually. I think the visual element of it might hit home with a lot of people who can't be bothered listening to two Celtic fans talking for an hour, quite frankly. So we're going to put it out there to capture a bigger and wider audience. And then it gets people talking. How many people started talking about the state of Celtic Park after watching Steve-O's video from Celtic World Order? Loads of people reference it. So it's the visual element of that. It's going to be difficult to do it, but we'll have a challenge. It's going to cost a few quid, but we'll put sponsorship in place to make it happen. And once we put it out there, what happens after that? Well, maybe more fans demand that we actually do something with the stadium. You know, it's about these things like when we're talking about engagement and communication, JP, I would love to be sitting here saying, right, let's talk about predicted 11s for the weekend, and we will get to that. But I would love that. If people think that I wake up every morning and think, right, how can I criticise a club today? Rubbing my hands? Absolutely not. It leaves me empty waking up when the club are in disarray. And I didn't quite realise the levels that we've kind of stooped to in terms of having strong people in big positions at the football club. Now, there's one thing about Peter Lawwell. I think Peter Lawwell's run his race. I remember when he retired or he stepped down from the CEO's position. Certainly not directly after the Dubai debacle or losing the 10 or anything like that, because they wouldn't want to give fan pressure the credit for any changes at the football club, JP, but he did step down. And I remember speaking about it and waxing lyrical about the job he had done at Celtic. You know, when you look at legacies, that was it. That was it all wrapped up. That was a legacy. But he comes back. He comes back, can't help himself, has to come back. Now, I think we do need someone with the stature, the leadership, all of these things, to be able to command rooms, negotiate. We need all these things, the skills that Peter Lawwell's got. We need somebody to have these skills, but it's not Peter Lawwell we need, and it's certainly not Michael Nicholson we need, because from what I see, he doesn't have them. And it's not just based on 2.5 hours in a room with him. It's based on the credibility of the football club taking an absolute kicking from lots of different areas of football in relation to our approach on recruitment and also on bringing academy players through. We spoke really quite closely about Rocco Vata, about Daniel Cummins. Forget for a moment what the guys do in their careers with Watford and West Ham or wherever they end up, JP. Let's just focus on how we treated them. Let's focus on how we treated Ben Doak, not how he was able to negotiate a good deal away for the club. Let's talk about the 12 months prior to that deal and how we actually treated Ben Doak. It's not all on the players, JP. It's not all on all of these different elements, so be that agencies, ex-players, boardroom and directors of other football clubs in Europe who are trying to do deals with us, agencies who don't really want to work with Celtic. I've heard 2 different agencies who are in that boat. Listen, there's a thread developing, but there's a clique. And the clique for me is basically outside of that bubble, outside of that egg. Everybody is entitled. Everybody doesn't know what they're talking about, JP. Their ideas aren't worth even looking at, right? That's where we are right now. And it's a clique mentality. If there's anything similar between the people that run our club right now and the people that ran our club almost into the dirt prior to Fergus coming in, it's the cliquiness of it. It's almost like a pact. You know, the fans right? Let them eat cake, sit down, count the trophies, be happy. That's the mentality and the attitude. And people think, oh, well, you can never force change. Well, listen, the collective will never get or look for credit with regards to the single tickets for the UEFA Cup games, Europa League games. But they have made a change. And it did happen after last Monday's meeting, where it was raised in that meeting, JP, about the £45 no concession approach to singular tickets for the Europa League. So you can make changes, albeit some of the changes have to be very small. I think you can widen your influence with the longevity of a group, expanding the group, building the group. I think you can have a voice, you can have an influence. But from day one, I've also said that there's a multifaceted approach that's required. You've got the Celtic Trust, you've got Celtic Supporters Limited, both looking at the shareholding of the football club. You had some brilliant opinions on the night and suggestions on the night from Harry Brady, who you may or may not listen to on Celtic Underground, talking about the corporate governance, what we're not doing right, what we have to be doing right in terms of people at the football club, the length of time that they've been there, CEOs coming back as chairman. These are things that we're just making up the rules as we go along, JP. So I think the collective, we're meeting tonight, updates will be shared after the meeting. Everything's going to be democratic. I know in this day and age, JP, instant gratification, 81 pickups of your phone every single day on average. Everybody wants information in the here and now. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. If you want to keep things consistent and you want to keep the communication channels relevant. The other thing I would say is that there's lots of wee things that you can work. So the fans forum. Let me know in the comment section right now. I'm going to go right down to the most recent comment. Have you ever attended a fans forum at Celtic Park? Let me know. Let's do this live. Have you ever attended a fans forum? Let us know in the comment section. JP, have you ever attended one?
Didn't ever see an invite or no. Was aware that it happened. Obviously, the only reason I'm aware that it's happened is because you said that you were given the minutes from it. I don't know if you were aware that one was happening. That happened. Did you know that was happening? So it was after the affair. So someone that is completely plugged in to what's going on at Celtic, as you are every day, how on earth did you not know that it was happening? You said I think you got invited to one virtually during COVID.
Well,
did you?
the thing is, I didn't even get invited. I just got past the invite. That
Right.
was a dial-in. So somebody on the fly gave me the invite and said, "Oh, do you fancy doing this tonight?" And I thought, yeah, well, I don't even know what this is. I've never heard of a fans forum. When did this start? So as far as I know, and the questions that the comments are coming in. If anyone has been in, I'll also bring up your comment. But you need to be a season ticket holder to attend. The dates of the fans forum are hidden somewhere on the website, JP. They're hidden somewhere on the website. Alongside the announcement that Scott Bain got a new 3-year deal and that James McCarthy's left the building. They're in there somewhere, but we're not quite sure where. But basically, it's like, right, okay, you do a fans forum and you are putting that on a pedestal as being your communication channel. Let's all go to it then. Let's use Acsom to tell everybody when it is. Let's go en masse. Let's be organised. So there is a lot of things you can do. And if we can do them better, then we absolutely will.
Well, does this not go back to accountability and, not making everybody aware of what is said and what is not said so that they can't overpromise and underdeliver? Is that really not what John Hughes said before, which makes total sense to me? Just going back to last week, I spoke to Chris and I said that you'd asked me at the start of this season what my goals were for this season. I mean, you could go back to an episode in probably late July, being like you saying, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Well, I would hope that we could get to the Champions League and equal what we did last season."
Yeah.
And if we get to the Bayern Munich stage and face a similar test at Bayern Munich, and we go out, I'll be like, and we go out as long as we don't get completely embarrassed, I'd be like, "Well, that's fine. We've punched at the same level as we punched at last year." But the fact that we didn't even get there, I don't know how they could sit there and not be wholly embarrassed that they have there's things that we didn't, the transfer window didn't go quite the way we wanted it. I mean, that I feel
But it's
I
those.
feel insulted as a Celtic supporter, season ticket holder, to be hearing that kind of thing back.
It's a
If I'd have been in the room, I would have been raging,
You would have
absolutely
been.
raging,
You would have
reading
been.
it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, are you aware that I'm spending nearly £800 in the last 3 or 4 months on a season ticket? You've swooped in and took that money out of my account, and my rationale for spending that money is that every penny of that I would expect to be spent in the best possible way by you, and you've not done it. You absolutely haven't done it, and that has been reflected in the fact that we were going there, and people still are. And there's that guy that keeps commenting, sure he'll rear his head today. Was suggesting, and this has been suggested by a few people that have been in defence of Celtic, that we somehow were the team properly prepared for the European qualifiers. How many friendlies had we played? What was their condition like? Were they coming back too late from the previous season? Are you honestly trying to tell me that that's happened on 8 occasions over different managers, and they've all made the same mistakes to not have the players fit enough to play in those games, or because we're coming up against teams that are at different points in their season? Absolutely no way am I buying that as an excuse.
But
No way.
that's part of the cliquey mentality, JP, that there is an excuse for everything. You were talking there about recruitment. Let's blame tax implications in Belgium. Let's blame everybody else other than ourselves for being unable, incapable, without the tools to actually negotiate a deal properly and quickly enough. Some simple things, right? So I'm led to believe that Balikwisha and Tunekti were 2 of our star targets. So they did not become targets after, post Kairat. They didn't become targets. We'd been chasing them, and Balikwisha had been in the equation. I know he's not set the heather alight, by the way, but these 2 guys were apparently
plenty of time. I saw enough from the composure. People will say, "Oh, so what? He put in a ball for Maeda." It was a pressure situation.
Yeah,
pressure situation. He could have easily skied that, like Maeda does on regular occasions when he doesn't have the composure to cross it properly. But it was a great ball from Engels, much maligned, into Balikwisha, much maligned, into Maeda, question marks. So I came out of that game, all 3 elements of that winning goal were contributed to by players that have been questioned.
yeah.
So whilst Balikwisha might not, like you say, have hit the ground running for the Kairat game, we could have got that initial surge of enthusiasm from Tunecki, which has maybe sort of subsided a little bit. His first 2 games he was completely on fire, and he's maybe not hit the same levels as he has done. But I mean, that's the story of a winger, as it's commonly referred to. But you could have got that initial bounce from Tunecki in the Kairat games. It gives us a mazy run at home and slots it away, and we're 1-0 up. It opens the door, opens the floodgates. It also brings the confidence levels up of the players, the mentality of the squad. Kieran Tierney in the post-match interview with Tunecki is like, I said, he's an absolute joy to play with. And, I don't know if I said this or I thought this, but the whole idea of a new player coming in who has enthusiasm for what he sees. It's like bringing your mate to a game that's never been to a game before at Celtic Park. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it kind of makes you go, oh, it is amazing. And then not that you need reinvigorated, but maybe sometimes you do. And sometimes that someone's saying that to you and be like, oh God, I can't believe you get to come here every week or every second week. Things like that. And then you're like, aye, of course. And then the players would have felt that as well. So what you were saying, I don't know, Balikwisha and Tunecki were targets.
So they were targets. So they can't say that we changed tact. They were the guys we wanted, and they would have signed for us even before we got knocked out of the Champions League. This is my point. So why not get them in the door early? Balikwisha, right? I agree with you, and I hope there's a turning point there with Balikwisha. I really do hope so, right? But it's taken 6 games, JP. Right, okay, make sure the 6 games are pre-Kairat then. Get them in early. Get all that stuff out of his system. The bad games, getting to know his teammates and all the rest of it. And maybe by the Kairat game, he is actually firing, right? Tunekti, similarly, I think people obviously see how impactful he can be in the double up on him, etc., etc. That happens as well. But they guys had to be in it's as simple as that. Get the guys in the door that you had targeted and who you could have signed. Because there's no way that we had 2 bigger signing targets, JP, who refused to come to us because of the Champions League scenario. That's my point. So bring the guys in and keep Kuhn. Keep Kuhn for 210 minutes. Keep him for 2 games, because that money's not going anywhere. Como are still buying Kuhn after the 2 games. Keep him in the building. Get into the Champions League. Now, if you are the CEO, I'm the contracts guy, he's the money guy. If you are that tag team, right? If you are those 2 guys and you can't see that, then you've not got a clue about football. There's no clue about football there, I'm afraid. You need to have as much quality in the building as you possibly can.
Especially when you've stripped it away.
Exactly. And see the thing, JP, all this stuff about, but you need to have enough to take on Carrot. It's not even about that. It's ensuring that you're prepared for the Champions League proper as well. So
the first game was only a couple of weeks into September.
Exactly.
So you've given those players less and less time to be assimilated into the squad. And, and lo and behold, we're not in it. We're in a lower competition.
And as Patrick said yesterday, it was a great point he makes. And he does. He makes brilliant points, Patrick. He said, if you're not in the Champions League, so this 10 in a row thing I'm talking about, forget 10 leagues in a row. That will happen if you go for 10 Champions League games a season in a row, right? So there's your 10 in a row. That's your focus. See if you don't, for whatever reason, JP, and you're well prepared, but you just come up against a really tricky opponent and they beat you. And everybody says, oh, actually, they deserved that, right? If that happens, then Europa League, you should be prepared to win it. You should be going into that saying, we're prepared to win this now. That should be our vision. So Champions League 10 games, or if it doesn't quite go your way and you end up in Europa League, be prepared to win it. That should be our vision. And why not? And you're talking there about people coming to Celtic Park and being blown away. I used to do it myself. I brought people over from all over the place and taken them to Celtic Park, or allowed them to use the season tickets, like Brian Cannon from Microdot came up. He wanted to experience Celtic Park. I've always been open to do that because you want to sell this magnificent football club to as many people as possible, right? And people from Germany, St. Pauli fans back in the day would come over and would go to the Celtic games. Would they be blown away with that stadium? Now, 30 years down the line, the way it's looking, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, season on season. I want it to be some place that you're proud of, that you're saying to people over in Germany, as I've done in the past, up you come over, let's enjoy this and have a whole weekend. And the centre of that weekend is actually going to Celtic Park. It will blow you away.
Well,
I'm not confident I could actually sell that at the moment.
Well, on that, I mean, they weren't. You can't say that they weren't listening, because I saw an article last night, and I'm absolutely not in any way defending them, because it shouldn't take somebody at a meeting like you attended to highlight this as an issue. But the fact that there wasn't any concession prices, and did he not keep sort of circling back to it? We have the lowest, and it's like, yeah, okay, great, we have the lowest price tickets in Britain or whatever.
It was like talking to Alexa. When Alexa can't find your tune, mate, you just got the same response.
Yeah, but they have actually conceded and opened it up for the Utrecht and Roma game, I think. The Roma and Utrecht games, they've basically said, we will sell concessions following supporter feedback or something like that. And it's like, quite a lot of things were said to you last Monday that you might want to take on board going forward, including the stadium. Like, and what was it? That Liam said, you want to sell these ideas to them to make it feel like it's their ideas, so that they're not having somebody going, oh, well, this was my idea and then I'm going to take credit for it, Like, do you think Smitty cares that it was his idea to do the 12th man walk-in at Rugby Park? No, I don't. He's not walking around going, oh, check me out, I'm brilliant because I came up with that idea. He just wanted it to happen. So all these things that we want to happen, nobody wants it to be able to attribute the idea to themselves. They just want to see it happening. So if in a month's time Celtic, out of nowhere, say something like, following supporter feedback, we are delighted to announce the revamp or I don't know what word you want to use, redo of Celtic Park, and this is our plan. This is 2028. This is what we want to do by this period of time. It's going to cost X amount of money, blah, blah, blah. Nobody would care about who put that forward at that meeting. Everybody would just want to see it happening.
Yeah. It needs to happen before the 140th birthday of the club. We need to do it before then. I mean, there was an announcement on the socials this morning that on the 3rd of November, the annual mass is going to take place at St Mary's in the Calton, the birthplace of Celtic. 138 years. Obviously, it was 7th of November, 1887. I always grew up thinking it was 1888 because of the badge and obviously the numbers on the badge. But when you read The Glory and the Dream by the dearly departed Tom Campbell and Pat Woods, you actually realise the club were formed in 1887. First game was in 1888. So that you look at that and you think, wow, 138 years. What can we do for the 140th year? You know, or what can we do to celebrate the next celebration of Lisbon? We should do something. Even if and by the way, it's going to take time. Of course, it's going to take time, JP. But these are things that aren't even on the table. All we keep hearing is there's going to be no revamp of Celtic Park whilst we're playing in Scotland. Something else that I've gone on about a few times.
It doesn't need to be the extension or additional seating or anything like that. It just needs to be. Do they honestly think they could just leave it like that and everything's cool? Well, you know,
I think so. What we're going to do with our visuals, the CGI, is we're going to do the entire footprint plus the main stand. What's it going to look like? 70,000 capacity stadium. What's this going to look like? I'm talking media mesh all around the stadium. We're not going to hang about here, JP. We're going to go absolutely studs up on it.
Put that in the comments, by the way, after I said, you know, if you replace those banners with some sort of like digital screen or projection or whatever, somebody said that is absolutely feasible.
Totally. It's now, these things back in the day were mega expensive, but you drive around Glasgow, as I did yesterday or the day before, the big screens are everywhere now, JP. You know, they can be installed everywhere. Going out with your wee bucket and some wallpaper paste, that's kind of dying out now. You know, you don't really need to do that. There's media you can use.
The Co-op Live music venue in Manchester has a corner of the building that is just digital screen. So when whoever's playing that night, they put up the sort of massive like logo and
brilliant.
And it looks amazing as you approach the venue from a distance. So I mean, the technology's there.
Needs to be a spectacle. The park has to be a spectacle. It has done in the past. I talk about walking down even before, you know, it looking like it does now. The excitement of finally seeing floodlights and going up to the stadium. But we need it to be a spectacle for every single vehicle that drives past, every single aircraft that comes into Glasgow. There's Celtic Park. Wow, what a spectacle! That's what we need, JP.
My excitement is muted when I'm walking along that street up to the Jock's Dean stand. When you look at the fact that the banners haven't been like finished or put back up or whatever they're going to do with them, we're now like rapidly approaching Halloween, and those haven't been sorted, and it just beggars belief. It's almost it almost feels like it's like, how long do you think we can get away with not putting them up? Let's see how long it takes. Will we just
who's responsible? This is what I would say. If I'm running that football club, right, once a week, JP, take an old school wander around the park, do it. Have a look inside and out. What needs improved? Who's responsible for that? I mean, some of the tarmac, if you think about disabled access and all that, some of the tarmac's horrific, you know, for wheelchair users and stuff. So these are things that the club really need to, you know, improve on big time. And I'm going to bring in as many as I can before we wrap up today. And we will talk a wee bit about the Dundee game. Of course we will. Hoops. Oholic, like that. Lenny didn't even back the board. He backed a shareholder. Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's a clique mentality. And that's Lenny's truth. That's what he thinks. But, you know, don't do it in such a way that it's almost as if everybody else who's got an issue right now, because you've got to look at the optics of this, JP. There's a collective. There's a meeting tonight. There's action getting taken at games. Don't do it in such a way as almost as if to say to Celtic fans, just be thankful for what you've got, Entitlement, spoiled, toxicity, all this stuff. It's a nonsense.
Of course, he's going to have loyalty towards them at Desmond. Desmond gave him his biggest shot that he'll ever have.
Twice.
Yeah, because we know that it's Desmond that calls the shots for the managers. We know that it ultimately goes back to him. We know that they're leaving meetings to send an email to get approval and things. So, like, obviously that it's his. He takes credit for Brendan Rodgers, and he takes credit for Martin O'Neill. You know, these are his kind of big ticket items. And Neil Lennon, I suppose, in some ways you can understand but the loyalty that he has to him. However, it feels like it's blind loyalty at this point, because the direction of the club, as we can all see, isn't going the way that it should be going. And there's far too many people there that have been there too long. There's the lack of fresh ideas, lack of business acumen at the top end. And I get that they would probably be watching this and being like, "Oh, what do you know? You don't know anything. Like, you are just a couple of clowns on a sitting on a podcast. Look at the state he is with your IKEA shelves filled with tat." Like that's ultimately, and if that's what they think, fine. I don't really care what they think. I just want the best for the football club that I've invested a lot of money in, a lot of time in, and it's a big part of my life. It always has been, and it always will be till the day I'm not here.
But I'm going to pick up on that, because that was almost a verbatim quote from a comment we've actually received on this show in the past regarding our shared love of IKEA shelving. However, I'm going to take you back to Not the View. Not the View in 1987 gave you a blueprint of what Celtic could and should be. See, 10 years later, that's where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, they told you, we need to float this football club as a PLC. We need to go public. Can it be a private endeavour? Needs to go public, right? That happened. We need to rebuild the stadium. It happened. We need to get rid of the current incumbents. It happened. They seen it. So listen, I'm not comparing us to Not the View. They guys are up there.
I totally
a million miles up there.
I agree with you on your podcast idea for them. Them in a snug with a camera on them, drinking pints.
Oh,
as soon as I watched the first 5-10 minutes of the interview that you did with them, I was like, oh, what? These should definitely do something together. Like,
what a great sense of humour as well. Like, to the point where it was almost like there was in jokes and all that going on. JP, that the whole private eye kind of vibe, I think, and that's obviously what Jerry Dunbar was influenced and inspired by. But I'm not comparing Acsom to Not the View. Not the View are out there on their own. However, what I'm saying is, fans can have ideas that actually could work for the football club. And if you've still got your old Not the Views, go and have a look at the first few editions, the old photocopied ones. The amount of sense that was written in those fanzines was off the scale, JP, and it came to fruition.
Well, 1989, I read that one out to you from their opening page, where they're like basically saying, "Is there anybody out there that like was a bat signal into the sky looking for a Fergus McCann?"
I know,
and you know, we obviously in a financial sense don't need a Fergus McCann to do that, but we need somebody to come in with his same vision. Like, it's not the money that we need anymore. We've got the money, and credit to them for setting us up with such a healthy bank balance, and for their success and some of their success in selling players. The success in selling players. Obviously, you've got things like Matt O'Reilly and Jota and everything else. Whether or not the Jota was just an absolute gimme from Saudi Arabia or not, I don't know. It still seems a really, really strange signing. The Matt O'Reilly one, you can see playing out in glorious Technicolor as he's starring in the Champions League for Marseille and whatnot. But we don't need the monetary aspect. It's more about someone who can come in and take all the good things that are there and then move us forward and push us forward into the modern age. And I totally agree with what you said the other day, where it's just like there seems to be this same mentality, is that like, oh, we need to watch, we need to be careful, you know.
Oh yeah,
look what happened to them and everything else, and just on them.
That ain't happening, JP. We need to get over that.
100%. It's kind of like I don't know what the syndrome is, but there will be some sort of psychobabble.
We could come up with our own psychobabble syndrome.
There will be some psychobabble syndrome, but just on them, look at the state of them and what they're saying right now. We need a figurehead. We need someone with gravitas. We need, you know, someone that understands the standards and the traditions and all this sort of stuff, right? We don't need a floppy-haired guy with, you know, who babbles on about XG when we've been beat 2-0 at home or whatever. We don't a philosophy manager. They're petrified of the fact that that's what they'll get served again. See all the people that are anti-Brendan Rodgers. We've got that right now in place, in situ. Look how hard it is for them. They are absolutely petrified about making another mistake in a managerial appointment. You can hear it, you can see it. I'm not confident with the way that these people are and the way that they spoke to you and everybody else last Monday that they would go out and, I mean, my mate Chris said yesterday, oh, it'll be Kennedy and Maloney, wait you see. And I'm like, if that happens, that'll make the Ross, it should make the Ross County scenes outside the ground seem like, you know, the absolute small fry that they were, because that would be nuclear, I think, if they turned around and did that.
You've brought up a phenomenal point here, right? And I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not saying that this is similar to what's happening at Ibrox, JP, but just for a moment, visualize that as a scenario at the end of the season. After everything that's going on, Brendan Rodgers doesn't stay at Celtic, but Michael Nicholson does as the CEO, and Chris Mackay does as the CFO. And there's maybe a wee bit of shuffling going on in the boardroom. I expect there will be, simply because of the corporate governance, simply because people have been there far too long, they need to go. Should the chairman continue after this year? I think not after this season. Will he move? Maybe, right. But let's just say that the core group, the clique mentality, the culture is still there within our boardroom, JP, where we know best, right? The same kind of culture that thought it was a good idea to appoint Neil Lennon twice, once in the showers. It wasn't the right decision. We continued. The wheels kept going. We continued to win and win and win. Did it move us forwards as a football club? No, it didn't. It didn't, particularly the first time round. So in relation to that, if we were to go ahead and do something like what you just suggested there, Kennedy and Maloney, without any fan action, people wouldn't buy into it. People would not buy into that. You're not selling 100% of your season tickets with that. You're just not, right? So what is the alternative to that? Because I'll tell you what, the club needs to start thinking about this right now in terms of their decision making. Do you try and pull a rabbit out of the hat? Because there's no many out there, JP. There's no many rabbits out there. We got lucky with Ange, right? Yeah, it was maybe ambitious to go for Eddie Howe. We didn't get him though. It was ambitious at the time to go for Martin O'Neill. First time round, it was ambitious to get Brendan Rodgers. Second time round, it wasn't as ambitious. He was out of work. And, you know, his stock had dropped sufficiently. It wasn't as ambitious.
He also had a point to prove.
Yeah.
Without that, would he have come back? Probably not. If he'd left Celtic in the right way for all parties, unlikely. But the fact is that he said at a closed shop meeting at Celtic Park that my mate was at, he said he saw himself being edited out of Celtic history and he wanted to come back to correct that. Mm-hmm. How could you argue with that? How could you argue with that motivation? Mm-hmm. And that motivation wouldn't be there had he not saw that was happening. So there was an element of this works out for both parties. And he's come back knowing fine well that it was still behind the scenes what it is. He tried to make out when he came back, oh, you know, it's been great the last couple of years. It was great the last couple of years because Ange was using CAA and and using Frank Tromboli. That was the difference. And then that went away.
What we're talking, 2 transfer windows when Ange comes in, plus a couple of players like maybe Moy and Johnson. 2 transfer windows plus 2 players from another two transfer ones. That was it, JP. That was the only thing that we did well in terms of recruitment. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that changed. And by the time Brennan comes back, that's not there. That process is no longer there. And you're dealing with Mark Lawwell at that stage.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, and I've been slagged on here for like, oh, your defending of Brendan Rodgers is pathetic. I think you only need to look at what's going on the other side of the city to see that when you get to that position where you've got no manager and they've got no manager in place ahead of a game and on Saturday and a European game next week, and there's talk of Neil McCann looking after the team. I mean, what? That's just madness, like absolute madness, like that none of them can comprehend really. But I don't want us to be in that situation. So if you've got a guy who's said on camera that he wants to stay, who has a proven track record of winning at Celtic and has got a proven track record of doing well with the players that he wants, and I'm still not signing up to this fact that he signed off on Inamura, Yamada, Osman,
no chance.
And if he did, I said last week, I went, if it comes out in 5 years' time that they were all his signings, I'll stand corrected. But I just don't see how it is. How on earth did they suddenly arrive and he goes, actually, nah, look good on video, and I like what I heard from the coaches, but don't fancy them. Not going to put them in my European squads. Not going to play them.
Waste of a jersey. Waste of 4 jerseys. Nothing personal against the players, JP. It's the system that's dysfunctional, not the players.
We've still not spent money on the only striker we've spent money on is Shin Yamada at $1.5 million since we bought Adam Ida for $9 million last summer. And we've since sold him and Kyogo. That's there's not on any planet is that acceptable as a football club.
Or in any walk of life, if you lose quality and fail to replace it, your results aren't going to be as good. I mean, it's simple, right? By the way, we will have a few moments to talk about music. I will make absolutely no apology for that. However, Jay Conley, Jay Larkin, afternoon, all 2 league wins, and we're back at the top. Shame about the Green Brigade and the boys missing Hampden. Didn't have a chance to talk about that. They've been given no tickets for the semi-final. I seen their announcement yesterday. Rob Lilly 8878. Hello all, just listen to Paul Elliott's interview. Could he be brought back into a position of power at the football club, director of football? He's got a very good position, or he certainly did when we spoke to him. We had an interview with him. Amy did it when she had that brilliant series of interviews. One of them was with Paul Elliott, and he really, really did impress me during that. He had a very good role. Was it diversity at the FA maybe? And these are people who I think could definitely benefit the football club in some role, not just because they played at Celtic, but whenever we have a position available, let's just put the best possible person in the market who we can possibly attract to the football club in that position, and see if you do that, we'll improve, JP. And that's from catering right up to the CEO. Just get the best person you can possibly get. It doesn't, I love having the Celtic link there, I absolutely do, and I do think there should be an element of that at certain areas of the football club. You can never lose that, but just get the best people in to do the job. What protests are planned, says Barry McCluskey, for this weekend? That'll all become clear tonight, Barry. Everything is going through that process of democratically agreeing to it. There was definitely something in here about Oasis. There you go. Bolshy boy, you said it. Oasis just thought I'd get it done early. Yes, you have thrown it in. Music chat today, JP, is this. Just before coming on, I seen a little video on TikTok, and it was Inhaler. I think have you worked with Inhaler?
Yeah, I did the show at King Touch. Yeah,
you did, didn't you? Aye, that was a while ago, wasn't it? I remember you mentioning them.
2019.
I didn't even know who they were or their connection to Bono or whatever. Anyway, the question was this: top 5 bands out of the island, right? So the band are all throwing names in the hat. And Wolf Tones get a mention, by the way.
Wait, the band actually say this?
Yeah.
All right, okay. Right.
Aye, they do. But here was the 5, right? So I'm going to do it from 5 up to 1. So that'll be in ascending order. Yes. And let us know in the comment section if you agree with this, JP. I think that's fair enough to leave it hanging with a little music question. Right. So number 5, 5th best band out of Ireland, according to Inhaler, Aslan.
Ah.
You worked with them just recently at Tots, didn't you?
Great guys, yeah.
I seen them when Christy Dignam was the lead singer, and I saw them in Edinburgh with my missus. It was a phenomenal night. Number 4, the Cranberries. I love the Cranberries. Absolutely loved the Cranberries. I thought they were tremendous. Number 3, the Dubliners.
I mean, you kind of have to put them in, really.
Luke Kelly, man. Oh, unreal. Unbelievable. Number 2, U2. Up to a point, JP. Listen, I'm up to a point. Zoo TV, Actum Baby, Zooropa, all that. I loved all that stuff. Loved it.
If you say the Cores are number 1, then I'm going to just delete this. Come off.
I'm going to lose your Wi-Fi, aren't I? Number 1, top Irish band of all time. And as I do this, by the way, I'm going to bring this up in case anybody's shouting them out. It was not the Saw Doctors. No, it wasn't. Shebeen. Aslan are excellent. I agree. Wolf Tones all day. Michael Kennedy. Who was the best band out of Ireland of all time? Luke Kelly was amazing. I agree with that as well. Soup Dragons. They were for Bell Silver, they know. Mind you, they might all be second generation Irish. Pogues didn't get a mention. Pogues didn't actually get a mention. Neither did Bewitched, incidentally, or Boys Own, Celtic World Order. But Martin McGinn got it right. Thin Lizzy.
Oh, yeah.
Thin Lizzy. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can't put much argument up against that, but I don't think Bono would even argue against that.
Nah, I don't think so.
I'm doing a show with Curb Dog tomorrow, and they're the first band I ever saw live. So I've never met them before. I'm just really looking forward to that. So they're supporting Reef tomorrow at SWG3. So
right, let me get this right. So did they support Therapy?
Correct.
Brilliant, phenomenal. So the first band I ever saw live then would be Utah Saints, because they were supporting U2 back in '93. Listen, let us know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with all the points that JP and I have discussed today. But in particular,
how wild is it we haven't spoken about Dundee away on Sunday? And I said this to Chris last week. It's exhausting talking about stuff that we shouldn't really be talking about because
the negative energy. That's
because people aren't doing their jobs properly. We are spending our time talking about the things that need done instead of the things that instead of the actual reason why we are on this, which is to talk about football and talk about who might play on Sunday and coming back off an international break and the fact that it's an away game, which is always a little bit sticky. Like, I'm not expecting it to be an easy day on Sunday at all. I think it'll be tight. I think Stephen Presley will be wanting to prove a point against a former club. I know he had a good time at Celtic, but I think he'll still be kind of like, right, well, this is my opportunity. It's on telly. It's an early kickoff. Those types of games are always a bit sticky. So, and yeah, there'll be some sort of planned protest, whatever it is. I fully support it because, like I said at the start of the show, I don't think that this can be, and I don't want it to be fragmented or derailed in any way. I just want that, the people that were there at the meeting on Monday and the people that are part of this fans collective, some of whom I know, some of whom I don't know, but the people that I know that are involved, I trust and I know want the best for Celtic, and I'm no doubt that the rest of the people do as well. And we're not just a bunch of silly wee guys off the internet. This is that letter was signed by thousands and thousands of people, and all of those people are legitimate voices against this regime, and we just want what's best for Celtic. Full stop.
100%, JP. And by the way, the list is growing. The list is growing. So there's an email address if you're on the socials that you can contact at the collective if you're part of a group, association, organisation, supporters club, fan media, and you want to be added to that open letter. You just have to email and you can be added to the collective. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. Even though the discussion points could be veering towards the negative side of the horizon, JP and I thoroughly enjoy talking about Celtic in any shape or form for an hour a week. So thanks, everybody, for getting involved. If you are in the Greenock, Gourock, Port Glasgow area and you call Square Sausage Slice, you might want to come to the Chris Sutton gig at Halloween. And we might even have some sliced sausage. What's the difference? Is it the same thing? Just a different name? I don't know. But anyway, brown sauce all round. 31st October 2025. 44 tickets available. Looks like it could sell out. Always a great night in Greenock. Come and join the fun. The ticket link is under the video. And if you can't do that, make sure you come and see us again tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.